Welcome to Daredevil in the Details, a show that explores and dotes on the philosophy and themes of Netflix's Daredevil, a digression collection brought to you by Method to the Madness and ZeroIndent. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined as always by Patrick from A Method to the Madness, where this week, Pat,
Woo!
We did it. It's the end of season 3, baby.
Oh my god, we're at the end.
We're at the end. Pat,
never thought I'd see the day.
What a journey. I'm bellowing with primal rage, okay? I'm
like the characters.
Yes, I'm letting out a screech of primal rage because we did it. It's so funny. It's so funny looking back. I mean, obviously, it's been interesting for me because I've been editing the show as we've been going. So there's a lot of like kind of interesting parallels with how we've done this. But I think my all-time favorite thing that's just happened that I'm now realizing in real time is we both decided to wear the same shirt today.
Yeah,
we're wearing the show shirt. We did it.
Nice. Did my camera just adjust randomly?
That was me.
That?
I just fixed. I just fixed the framing. Don't fix it in the edit. They won't know.
Sorry, I thought my camera was doing things. No, it's alright.
Have you seen that the Nvidia thing where it like the eye tracking thing? There's like
where it makes your eyes look like it's looking at the camera.
Yeah. That's like my worst nightmare as a person. Like for my computer to be like I'm just like looking at you at all times. Like that's fucked up.
That is creepy.
We should do an entire show that's just that.
Yeah, gotta represent the show.
Yeah, we got the merch on, bro.
Well, I guess technically it's not the finale of our show. It's the finale of Daredevil.
But it's the penultimate episode.
Yeah. Speaking of realizations, I've also just realized that you've been using the digression collection in the intro. That's our thing.
Yeah, yeah. If you recall, clearly you don't recall. Way back when I first pitched it to you, I was like, "Oh, we can just tag it as something so it's adjacent."
Yes, you did.
Yeah, we talked.
Now that you're telling me for the 5th time, coming back to me.
Now it's finally stuck in. I feel 2 types of ways coming into this. Obviously, we're talking about season 3, episode 13. Now I'm extremely sleep deprived at the moment, so the energy is quite chaotic over on this side of the fence. It's scattered, it's unfocused, and so I'm hoping to kind of hone my brain into a laser to hyper focus on this episode. We'll see how we go. I got my little scotch, and I think I'm ready to go. Before we get into
medication.
Yeah, this is that's correct. What high level this episode? What are your thoughts? Also, paint a picture for me. How did you watch it? Like, what was the environment? What was the vibe? What headspace were we in?
Well, I feel very good. I had a tummy ache all day, and it went away just before I started this episode. So just from that,
that's probably how good the episode is. It cured you.
Yeah, exactly. It cured me. Narrative therapy. Like how Matt explains at the end, it was all part of God's tapestry that it lined up. But regardless, just even if that wasn't the case, I had a huge ass smile on my face throughout this episode because it's so climactic. It's just everything comes together, and it's just an awesome punch up, an awesome swelling of plots and drama. It's everything I want out of a conclusion.
And what I love too is the way that it ends. You sit there and you go, "Oh, there's so much here. There's so much that they could do." You know? Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's I feel like this episode probably represents like whatever was the kind of the full vision of what they anticipated this show being able to do. I think this is like the culmination of all of that intention and potentiality kind of like condensed into this. Like something that I want to try and articulate if you're not watching along is how effortlessly the swelling that you're talking about happens. There's not a lot of scenes in this episode. It's these kind of like protracted, here's the thing, it plays out fully. Here's the next thing, it plays out fully. And by the time that you're sort of putting together what's happening, it's all about to be over.
it's not in a rush to like do anything or go anywhere particularly. It's like, I don't know, if this was a movie, this would be like the last like 10 minutes of like a 2 hour movie or something like that. Like,
oh yeah,
it's,
yeah, okay,
yeah, I feel like it kind of extrapolates on a feeling it extrapolates on like a very sort of tight knit, conclusive feeling that you would get from, I don't know, like an action packed film, like Avengers Endgame or something. You know, that sort of it extrapolates that over the course of an entire episode, and it's like, I don't know, really, it glues you to the screen.
I completely agree. I guess let's do it. Let's get stuck in. So we're talking about episode 13, season 3, written by Eric Olesen and directed by Sam Miller. This is, of course, Daredevil episode 39. So 39 episodes of the show in total at the time of recording. I went kind of ham on the summary.
I see that.
So could we hear the summary, please, Pat?
Okay. Matt Murdock observes the world from beneath the black mask on a rooftop. Meanwhile, Wilson and Vanessa don wedding garments. The real Daredevil interrogates Felix Manning, quite literally shaking out the location of where the bodies of Fisk's victims are stored before removal. Elsewhere, Foggy warns Mahoney that the man in black will make an attempt on Fisk's life. Back at Fogwell's gym, Foggy receives a call from the FBI. Foggy turns up only to find Seema is there to apologize. Knowing the agents are listening, Seema scribbles out that Ray left a video explaining everything. This turns out to be a dying declaration, an indelibly American law that allows deathbed testimonial because the person has nothing else to lose. Within the video, Ray outlines all of Fisk's crimes, as well as his own and his fellow agents. Daredevil calls Dex from Manning's phone, goads Dex, asks what happened to Julie, claims it was Fisk that killed her, and provides an address. Dex turns up only to find the bodies of Manning's victims, including Julie. At the hotel, guests arrive, criminals and FBI alike, to ordain the union of Wilson Fisk and Vanessa Mariana. The couple conduct their vows on the garden terrace, the very same where Fisk and Gao spoke so long ago of the devil. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. During the couple's first dance, Ray's video indicting Fisk goes public, just as Dex in the red armor makes an attempt on Fisk's life. Daredevil intervenes, and so ensues a protracted melee that will bring us to a conclusion for this episode and for the story. Dex kills all of the FBI agents, save SAC Hadley, providing Matt time to pursue Fisk and Vanessa to the penthouse. The man in black and the man in white square off, release a bellow of rage, and clash. When Dex arrives, the melee goes from fraught to elemental. Matt protects Vanessa from Dex while also defending himself from Fisk. The melee destroys the penthouse as Fisk punches through walls and Matt tosses Dex across furniture. Eventually, Fisk applies Dex's spine to a brick wall, leaving just the two combatants standing. Will the real Daredevil please stand up? In a penthouse founded upon murder and lies and exploitation, Matt Murdock lets the devil out. From that moment forward, the atoms of Hell's Kitchen changed. Wilson Fisk's blood etches a wound across Rabbit in a Snowstorm that will never heal. The blood of the wolf. Of all the wolves. With a primal scream of rage, Matt lets Fisk live. Instead, they strike an uneasy bargain. If Fisk begs off Karen and Foggy, Matt will beg off Vanessa. Mutually assured destruction. Both men, in desperation, make a deal with their respective devil. Matt and sister Maggie finally talk. Matt wonders if all of his hardship and pain wasn't God's plan. The attendant viewer may note that this conversation is less around God and more about Father Lantern. That perhaps without Lantern, there would be no Matt and Foggy. No Matt and Elektra. No Matt and Stick. No Matt and Karen. No Nelson and Murdock. And of course, no Daredevil. At the church, Matt delivers Father Lantern's eulogy. Feels like half of Feels like half of Hell's Kitchen is here today, he begins, and notes that Lantern welcomed everyone. And Matt asks for us all to transcend our fear, to rise above the darkness, to be a community, to be there for each other. At the Nelson Butcher, Matt and Karen have crazy chemistry, and Foggy makes good with his brother. Drinks in hand, the city is safe for now. We enjoy a moment of peace, of community. And Foggy writes 3 words on a napkin: Nelson, Murdock, and Page. In a sting, Dex is undergoing surgery, parts of his spine replaced with cogmium steel. We zoom in on a steel-ringed iris, and nothing less than a bullseye pattern. The rain clatters on the corrugated roofs and thuds against exposed brick. Hell's Kitchen enjoys a moment of peace, serenity even, and yet the shadows are long and dark in the alleys beyond the bodegas. Fading neon lights illuminate boardrooms, the kingpin is felled, and so opens a void of power. What happens next to Hell's Kitchen is a story for another time and place. Rather, all's well that ends well, for now.
Dun dun.
Very, very poetic, David. Well done.
Yeah, I did what I could. I feel that this episode brought that out in me. Like he was saying, like it's such an epic conclusion. I mean that in like both the like that's epic, man, but also in the traditional sense of the epic. Like it feels like a conclusion to the epic that is 3 seasons of this show pitting these kind of like, you know, these epic figures against each other. And Matt finally wins. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
There's so much to talk about. The weird thing is, even writing that summary, there's like 5 things that happen in this episode. Like the actual stuff that's occurring is quite they're kind of big blocks. So I guess that's kind of how I want to approach the discussion. We obviously start with a pretty sort of slow shot. So it's Matt in the black mask on the rooftop, and Fisk and Vanessa kind of getting ready. Fisk is in this kind of all white suit. And we get a really brief frame of his younger self holding the bloody hammer, right? This sort of sense of guilt, and potentially this kind of sense of confronting his past. Vanessa is there. You know, they're obviously... it's pretty quick for you as a viewer. I don't know if you had the same experience. I was like, oh, they're going to get married. Like, she's in a white dress as well.
Yeah.
What do you make of Fisk having this flashback to him holding the hammer, kind of covered in blood?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like you can take this 2 ways. One is that even on his wedding day, this momentous turning point in his life, that he's still can't escape his bloody past, and that this is an indication that he is forever trapped in this one mode that he is of this ruthless, like, violent person. And on the other hand, I feel like that's sort of you could take that another way with the conversation he has with Vanessa about kind of exactly this theme. He says, I thought my feelings were, a trick, the self-deception of a vain man. And you could take him viewing his younger self in the mirror, bloody holding a hammer, as the last time he will ever see that. Maybe it's like a send-off of that trauma.
Yeah, that's interesting because he goes on and he says that I only love you because I see myself reflected in your eyes, right? And he means me as I am now instead of what I see when I look in the mirror, right? Because when he looks in the mirror, he sees that kid, but when he looks in Vanessa's eyes, he sees the man he is. And he says it's the fear that I don't deserve you, that I'm broken. And the truth of Fisk is that he is broken, right? What we see when they actually get up there and they do their vows is that he doesn't see himself as he is when he looks into her eyes. There's that moment of hesitation on the altar, which we'll get to. And I think it's Fisk kind of correctly realizing that... We've talked about this a little bit before. I want to build on it, right? In season 1, it's him sort of trying to lay his first big move on Hell's Kitchen. Season 2 is him rebuilding and aiming for higher heights. And then season 3 is that rebuilding coming to fruition with the FBI, like he's gone from corrupt cops and state officials to corrupt judges, DAs, jury people, and the FBI itself. There's this escalation. And like we kind of talked about at the end of season 2, it's like he keeps waiting for the day when he won't have to do the next bad thing. Or there's a part of him that hopes that's a possibility. And I think you're right. I think this moment of the flashback in the mirror is him either, as you say, sort of trying to say goodbye to that or let it go, or a send-off for that person that he was. Or it's potentially him starting to realize that it doesn't matter what happens next. He will always be that kid. And he will always have done the bad thing, and there will always be another bad thing that needs to be done. Because once you start, right, we talked about this with that finale of season 2. Once you start doing bad things beget bad things, right? If you have to do terrible things to gain a position of power, then it's a terrible position, and it will demand more terrible things of you. And it's hard to tell where Fisk lands on this in this moment, but it's clearly on his mind.
Maybe it's like, I don't know. It's a similar thing to his revelation at the end of season 1, where he reconciles the fact that he's never gonna that he isn't any different from the kid holding the hammer, and an admission that he's broken is paired with the with Vanessa saying that we're all broken. It's the goal is to find someone whose broken pieces fit with yours. So it could be like it could be both a send off and an admission that you're forever trapped in this theme. But those two are reconciled in Fisk's mind now. That he is always going to. There's no piece of violence that can solve him. But that's not necessarily a bad thing now that he's with Vanessa, who understands that.
Oh, that's even more interesting in that it's like this sort of like a corrupted acceptance almost.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's kind of going, this is my true self, and she, right, and I see that reflected in her eyes, and that makes this okay, or I don't have to run from this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like this revelatory moment for him.
Yeah, and like I think it's the same kind of revelation. This was going to be my side note. It's the same kind of revelation we saw in that season 1 finale where he's in the prison truck, and he goes like, "I am the ill intent that beset the traveler." It's that same realization of like, it finally there's a person that can accept that about him, right? Like that accepts that he's broken in that same way. And the truth is, like, he doesn't deserve this. And he, like...
Yeah.
But he so firmly believes he does. And I think that's where this show gets a lot of leverage out of the fact that Vincent D'Onofrio can, despite his huge presence and just the gravity that he commands in scenes, he has this... He's able to communicate this underlying insecurity that is so specific to this character. It's like, I don't know. I guess we'll talk about it when we get to the wedding itself, but I want to kind of put a pin in that and foreshadow that as a thing this episode is interested in. Is like what is the weakness of Wilson Fisk, or what is the insecurity of Fisk? Like, and I think it's the reflection that he sees in the mirror. That he started his life by doing the wrong thing, and he's afraid that there is never a right thing that will set that wrong in a different direction. Also, less philosophical, Vanessa's dress is like a rich person's idea of what a good wedding dress looks like, and it just doesn't suit her at all. It's like weirdly gaudy. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't like it personally. It's what I'm saying.
I am the opposite of like a fop, so I don't have. I thought it looked alright. I wouldn't know.
I feel any wedding dress with that kind of shiny sheen to it, instead of like looking like a natural material with like a lace or something like that, I just can't get behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you call me a fop?
No, I may have implied it. I said I was the
Okay.
opposite of a fop. Yeah.
Yeah, deniability.
I mean, am I wrong though?
I mean, no, but I don't think that's a secret to anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so next thing that happens is Matt kind of tracks down Felix Manning, right? That is the next. I mean, because it's pretty quick. Again, like, not a lot happens in this episode. So he tracks down Felix Manning, literally like ties a rope to his ankle and dangles him over the rooftop.
Oh, dangles is a light word. He tosses him and lets the rope tied to his leg like catch him, and he presumably dislocates his entire leg.
This is the same thing that Bruce Wayne does to Roscoe Sweeney in the Batman Begins,
yes.
right?
Yes, it's exactly.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar. Yeah.
And I love it because Matt. What I love about this show is that it knows it's silly. So Matt just kind of sits on the rooftop with his. He's kicking his legs out in the air.
Yeah, is he? I didn't see that.
He's real comfortable in this moment in a way that like.
Yeah.
Because he's not wearing the armor, he has a lot of it's just him, and I really like that throughout this episode that like it's just Matt Murdock, and it's like Matt Murdock and Daredevil have finally merged into one character in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
You have the red,
he is all out of fucks,
and the black. Yeah, dude, there are zero fucks given by Matt this episode. Yeah. It's fucking awesome. And the lead that he gets, right? Well, first he takes Manning's phone, but the lead that he gets is the location of where Manning has been storing the bodies that his kind of kill squads have been executing, presumably before they like get rid of them somehow. It's like a walk-in freezer of a defunct restaurant. You know, it's some place we haven't seen before, and so yeah, Manning brings up Julie Barnes, and this is obviously the lead that unlocks Dex for Matt, I think, in a big way. We talked before about characters being dissemblable, right? Like Karen and Matt are these kind of complex characters that can kind of be unraveled. Foggy has a similar element they've managed to sort of sneak in. Same with Fisk, you know, can be disassembled in a kind of in a less complicated way. What I like about Dex is that he has a weakness in a psychological sense, right? There is an Achilles heel that Dex has, and it's this thing that we saw with his therapist, right? The same weakness that Fisk sought to exploit, Matt sees as an opportunity to try and turn Dex in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Is on a scale of like 1 to Karen shooting Wesley like 8 times, how immoral is it that Matt uses this to kind of turn Dex, do you think?
I wrote this down because it was so uncharacteristic, but it was so awesome that he just like, we've never seen him do this, like taunting psychological warfare.
Yeah.
It's a step down for Daredevil for sure. Like he's getting a bit more in the mud than he normally would here. And
well, his mind's on murder, right?
Yeah, it's indicative of how little fucks he's got left. Yeah.
Do you think, I don't know that I was like, what would my Achilles heel be if I was in a dramatic TV show? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I can't hold a relationship down. That's probably like a sore spot that someone could exploit. Outside of that.
Yeah.
I
don't want to say things that in case I hurt your feelings.
That's true. Come on, Pat. You and I both know.
Your lack of personability.
Yeah. I can be quite charming. I just choose not to be.
Okay.
The one in the book was like that I'm quite private. I'm thinking about the Sherlock book because I had to write fiction about myself, which was kind of complicated. Quite private, quite interior. And there's a sense of resentment that I never made it as an author in like a big famous way, I think. Or like that has driven me into like healthier things now. But I think there's like, if you were to write me into a show like this, that would be like the thing, that would be like my raison d'etre that I would have to overcome, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that I never got that HarperCollins book deal.
I liked that bit in your book. Your self fanfic with Sherlock.
Yeah, it was with for those who haven't read it, underig.press, grab yourself a copy. The reason I did that is I wanted to try and replicate. I don't think I've said this anywhere. So this is a Daredevil in the Details exclusive, Pat. I wanted to try and replicate the impulses of the people writing the fan fiction and running these blogs about the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried to think about, like, well, what are the biggest impulses? And it's things like trying to make Sherlock's meanness feel constructive in some way or informative in some way.
Right.
I wanted to have him be dismissive of, like, art as a concept. And then I wanted to kind of paint myself as sort of part of a larger story that we were unaware of, right? Like, you sort of get the impression that I've known him before and that there's some other story that, cause especially the ending, a lot of people have been like, I fucking love that last page where it's like, you know, at least, I left Baker Street that night, but I'd be back. I can't remember how it ends, but it's something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it has there's a sting to it.
There is a sort of, like a cynical nothing matters quality to that Sherlock, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, but I feel like it's an acceptance of who he is, right? Because if you imagine a Sherlock in an actual adult relationship, it's him being like, yeah, I had to give up being this guy with all this bullshit that I fling around all the time to actually just, like, being vulnerable. And part of that is going like, yeah, nothing matters. Like, you know, it's like in Rick and Morty, right? The end of the season 3, I think, where it's like, nothing matters, so you may as well come watch TV and be with us type thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, slight diversion. Yeah. So the intention here is Matt is basically he calls up Dex with this information, and sends him on a mission to go, or taunts him to go check out this location. While Foggy warns Mahoney that someone is going to try and kill Fisk and heavily implies that it's the real Daredevil. Foggy's argument. Talk me through how this lands for you. So Foggy's argument to Mahoney that they should try and keep Fisk alive is that they can then catch all the dirty FBI agents, like, and sort of deconstruct his apparatus if he's alive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think Foggy even buys his own bullshit? Because we know he doesn't want Matt to, like, damn himself. Like, does this argument even convince you an inch, or are you like Mahoney, where you're like, yeah, I'll send in my, like, D team, you know?
Well, Foggy's whole thing is that, like, has been consistently been, we can take down Fisk using the law, and we don't need vigilante justice or whatever.
Right.
So that rings true to me. You know, whether or not it's the degree to which he's saying it to convince Mahoney to do what he wants is, you know, is up in the air, I reckon. But I don't think he doesn't believe it.
Okay.
Know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. No, yeah, I buy that. I do love Mahoney being like, yeah, I'm gonna send in my, like, rookies and retirees, though.
Yeah.
Continues to be the MVP of this story for real. Just holding it down. Holding it down. I would watch the shit out of, like, a Gotham style spin-off season that's just about Mahoney doing, like, police work in Hell's Kitchen.
Well, I've included him in my fanfic.
That's perfect. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, no spoilers, though.
No spoilers, but yeah.
No, I like that. So then Foggy, okay. This is where the sequencing starts to get a bit muddled in my head, because it's really straightforward. So then Foggy goes back to the gym, right? Goes back to Fogwell's, where Karen is sort of watching the TV. And she's sort of like, you know, they're saying this about Nadeem, they're saying this about me, blah, 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 blah. And Karen's kind of talking. I can't remember what her argument to Foggy is, or the thing that she brings up, but basically she's sort of talking about Matt's intentions. And she's like, you know, if he did kill him, it would technically be in self-defense. And Foggy goes, technically plotting to kill someone is the exact opposite of self-defense. Which is an all-time Foggy bar, in my opinion. Like, just bars all day from this guy right now.
I guess I really didn't register what Karen meant in that moment, because I was like, Foggy, I was like, yeah, what the hell? Like, what is she talking about? But I guess, you know, just that Fisk is eventually going to destroy everyone in the whole city and kill Matt, Karen, and Foggy.
Yeah,
And in that sense, if he kills him now, yeah,
it's self-defense, exactly.
right.
And
it's
I love
like so many hoops to jump through.
I know, and then for Foggy to be like, "No, that's fully the definition of premeditated murder, actually." And off the heels of this, he gets a call from the FBI, right? And it's Dex, presumably. We don't know who's on the horn, but it's probably Dex.
Right.
He goes in by himself, and Karen's like, "This is ridiculous. You may not come back." And I love that his tactic, the second he arrives, is he gets a selfie with Dex and posts it on his campaign Facebook or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, "I'm at the FBI." I think another maneuver here, which he wouldn't do because he's too gallant, but another maneuver here would also be to bring Marcy as your attorney. Like, have an independent observer that might be able to, like, ruffle the FBI, but then that opens up a whole... This was before I knew why he was there, right? Like, before the scene that happens where you figure out why he's there, I was like, oh, this seems like a missed opportunity. And then when it does happen, I went, that's why they didn't. Because then you'd have to... There's so much more schematically you'd have to figure out, right? But yeah. I think that could have been an interesting scene at some point. Hint, hint, Pat.
You want more Marcy in your life? Is that what you said? Telling me?
I want Foggy to have to bring in Marcy as an attorney for him because I think that would put him in a really funny position as a character.
That is actually true. She's like a real like. I feel like she'll just bust his balls, just like anything he's saying, and then she'd be like, "No, here's what we should do," and it's like something objectively better, and he's like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, and he would never have the ammo. Is the thing.
Yeah.
Like she would always be right, and he'd be like, "Oh, for fuck's sake."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Underutilized, candidly. Again, would watch a soap opera with those two. So can you set up? It's complicated, but can you set up? So they walk into the room, and it's Dex, and SEC Hadley, and it's Seema, and she's like, "I want to apologize to my husband was capable of it." Can you set up the reason she's here and how it kind of plays out?
So, she's there. I mean, initially, to everyone else, to Dex, to Hadley and stuff, she's there because she wants to cooperate with the FBI's investigation, and because Nelson was Nadim's lawyer, I guess like she felt the need to continue with him as a lawyer, and like.
Well, I think she said she wants to apologize or something to him.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too sure of like the logic of like continuing to hire Nelson and Murdock.
I don't think she's this is where I think the show misses a beat because it's confusing. I don't think she's trying to hire him. She's asked him there, and she says like, "I want to apologize. Like, you worked for my husband. I want to apologize for him. I didn't know he was a psycho." Right? Is that what she says?
Right. I mean, yeah, that's what she says. Okay. I suppose that makes sense. Like, she's just sort of she's just pretending to like make amends with the people that Ray's hurt in this narrative that Fisk has created. Anyway, so she's there, she's got the phone with the recording that Ray made just before he got killed. We saw the beginning of that in episode 10 or 11. Or 12? Yeah.
11.
So she's playing along with the narrative that is out in public right now, that Ray was a madman, mental illness, shot a bunch of FBI agents. And then as soon as everyone's out of the room except Nelson, she reveals that no, she's watched Ray's confession video. She's onto the FBI, and she basically writes down what she actually means and hands Foggy over crucial evidence that will take down Fisk.
Yeah. What I like about this is how scared she is. Like, I think it's just like being... And you got to remember, like, when Foggy walks in, he knows who Dex is at this point. He knows that Dex killed everyone at the Bulletin. Like, is this fucking psycho? I love how composed Foggy is in this moment. He's obviously he's not calm, but he is composed in comparison to Seema. And the second they leave, she also brings back her composure. So like as much as she is panicked, it is a performance for them, or that she's distraught. It's a performance for Dex and Hadley. And what I like about it is the way it positions Seema as a character, which is yet again, she's able to see through a situation and produce a productive outcome, right? And do the morally right thing. I think that's a really interesting defining characteristic for such a she's almost a C-plot character for most of this season,
she's a
right?
tertiary character, pretty much. Yeah.
And I like that she's able to come to the fore here and have her moment in the spotlight.
Yeah, I know. That's why they were lovers. That's why they were married, because she's obviously like a reflection of Nadim's moral aptitude.
Yeah, and what I also love is that it reveals the flaw in Fisk's plan, which is refracted in Matt's eulogy, which is the flaw in Fisk's plan is that he targets this guy who is like undeniably a good person at heart and who has surrounded himself with good people, right? When he lies to Seema, she's like, the deal is you don't lie to me. That's why we work, right? Like honesty is such an important principle in their relationship. Fisk targets the wrong, he gets it wrong here in targeting Nadim, right? He the same traits that make Nadim possible to be blackmailed and put under his thumb, which is that the second that his sister in-law has cancer and her healthcare is cancelled, that he decides to pay for it himself and put himself in huge amounts of debt. That same vulnerability, as Fisk sees it, is actually the strength that makes him and the people around him immune to Fisk's machinations, right? It's the community aspect, that being morally good or striving, I think importantly, trying to be morally good begets more people trying to be morally good around you, right? Trying to do the right thing begets more people trying to do the right thing. And I think that's where Fisk misses this assessment of trying to come after Ray, is that undeniably he ends up doing the right thing. And you saw that in the church with Karen, where he gives Karen over to Mahoney, where he signs his own death warrant. And you see it here again, where he is leading by example of trying to be a good person, even if he can't be all the time. It's the trying that matters, not the being, right? It's attempting to transcend. It's not the transcendence.
Which is, I've noticed what all good stories do is that it's always like the characters who are willing to change and try to be or try to do the right thing, and a good story will go in the direction where they try to do the right thing and they will fail, and all these consequences will happen. But inadvertently, like Matt's tapestry analogy, that was a crucial flux moment where the things to make the good ending happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Which sort of, I guess it's that question of like what makes someone good? Is it doing good or is it intending to do good? And I think if we abstract it from stories and we just think about morality and ethics in general, one of the biggest, I think, lessons you can have as an adult is that people's intentions are less important than the praxis and the outcome of those intentions, right? One of the things that when I've been in bad relationships I've experienced is people visiting your intentions and deciding why you did something rather than what the thing was and how it turned out, right? And I think that's a really human instinct, because that's how we try and, we reverse justify our own actions in that way, right? You go, well, this thing happened, but I intended this, and you sort of self-draw a line to there. And I think this is a really good example of Ray has no control over what happens. He's pretty sure he's going to die. In fact, he's certain that Dex is going to come kill him. And what I like about the way that this reframes what's happened is when Dex turns up, he says, "I'm glad it's you." And when he says you, I now think he means both. He's glad it's Dex because Dex was a friend, but also he's glad that Dex isn't in the red armor. He's glad it's Dex as a person, right? And I think Ray is glad that in that moment, in his last moments, he's with, like, he's with Dex, this guy that he has worked with and that he betrayed, rather than with this kind of apparition that Fisk has invented, this phantasm, right? And if we fold all that down vertically, what we get in this scene is Foggy is Foggy bearing witness to Seema doing like a thing that Foggy would do. Like, it's just like an undeniably ethical thing to do. And that's exactly what Foggy is basing his entire life on, right? Or had tried to with Matt. That was the thing they failed to sustain. And she's choosing to do it, which I think for him inspires the opportunity to keep doing it. Yeah, it's a really special moment to me.
Wait, this just got me thinking though, like, what has Foggy been doing? Like, where does he work? Does he work for the Jessica Jones character?
So yeah, well he works at Marcy's firm. So he's working with Jerry Hogarth, I think is that character's name.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yeah. So he's a corporate big time lawyer up until the end of this episode.
Yeah, so that's the reason I asked. He's like, what I mean, these are the same questions that get brought up in Better Call Saul. It's like, like are you using your powers for good, being a lawyer for like a bank or a big business or something? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out the answer is no. In both cases.
Shocking. Yeah.
Although what I like is that Marcy doesn't chastise him for this decision he comes to. Again, it's nice just to see like a healthy, productive, constructive relationship on film. I think it's so enticing to have the drama and have the It's nice that just like Foggy and Marcy seem good together.
Yeah. I know. It's like, it's subversive seeing like healthy relationships almost.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of creatives don't necessarily have the best lives. There's kind of this big underpinning of Young, which is why we don't fuck with Young on this fucking podcast. But one of his big theories is like trauma leads to like, or trauma begets intelligence and creativity, which is why so many talented artists are fucked up. But we reject Young because Youngism is fucking stupid. But it is nice to see talented creative people be like, what if they were happy together and good together? No, I agree.
What do you want?
I'm coming for you, Dex. And my suit.
Where's Felix?
You'll find out soon enough.
I've got some free time now. Why don't we meet up?
I have a question. Did you enjoy the feeling you got when you killed those birdies? Is that why you're still killing?
Birdies?
The ones you killed with rocks. Bet it felt good at first, right? Then it's never the same after that. What do you think Dr. Mercer would say if she could see you now?
Can you hang on a second? I need a tissue for all the tears I'm crying over my shitty childhood.
Have you heard from your friend Julie lately?
I want to talk to Dr. Mercer, asshole. Keep talking.
What do you think she'd say if she knew about the innocent people you killed? I bet she'd be disappointed, Dex. If she were still alive.
If you hurt Julie.
Fisk had her killed. He killed Julie so he could replace her as your North Star.
You should stick to beating on people in alleys. Because you're not going to get in my head.
You don't have to believe me. Then again, you may want to ask how I got Manning's phone.
Don't know, don't care.
Julie wouldn't approve of you killing people, Dex.
Stop saying her name.
You said you got some free time. You may want to check out 16 Canal Place.
Why?
All right. Next thing that happens, we already set up the Julie Dex thing. Foggy takes the phone with the video. The contents of the phone is pretty straightforward. Basically, I didn't know this was a thing in America. Apparently, it fully is. which is if someone is certain that they're gonna die, they can give a declaration and it's admissible in court. Like the hearsay doesn't apply, which seems like a real problem, just like legally, I feel.
Yeah, you could coerce someone into making a declaration and then murder them.
Yeah,
I suppose. Yeah,
that's right. That's, you know what? That's some that's some Walter White shit right there.
Yeah,
For real.
that is a very sinister thought.
Yeah. And so the idea, I mean, what does he say? He basically just repeats what was in the closed grand jury hearing, right?
Yeah, you'd assume so. Yeah.
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 And I think specifically, you know, he admits to being what's the legal term, Pat, for like he aided and abetted the murder of Father Lantham. That's what he says?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And the upshot here is basically this is admissible, and they need to get it in front of the DA Tower. And if he agrees it's admissible, then they basically have Fisk nailed. And what I like is this is a foregone conclusion, right? He recorded this 2 episodes ago. So the last shot they had of trying to get Nadeem in front of the grand jury and have this indictment, that failed, and Nadeem didn't give up. From when because we cut from him before we see how the video ends. We get in that episode, we get the section before he says, Sammy, if you're watching this, you know, Seema, if you're showing this to Sammy, stop it here. We cut before he says those words. And so for us, it's like a revelation of, the end of what happened previously. That's what I really like about the show, is a thing that you keep bringing up, which is like, it just refuses to not develop characters and keep developing them. And this is the final development of Ray Nadeem, right? Which is that he is atoned for his sins in this moment.
Yeah, actually, and it is like such a complete resolution to his arc as well. Like if you think about it, like, you know, as interesting and messy as, and you know, as his character is, all the things he goes through, really what his story was about was just a man caught up in a moral dilemma of whether to blow the whistle on the corruption that's happening. And his last act is exactly that, and his last scene in the show. And it's like, you know, it's really just clean and excellent.
It's so simple. It's so simple.
Yeah, so simple, yeah.
We keep talking about it, but it's like the fundamentals done right.
Yeah.
So then Dex turns up to this address, and what I love is that I love the way the show communicates stuff without having to tell you, right? So Matt's on the rooftop, obviously doing his supersonic hearing shenanigans so that he can be present in this moment, so that when the moment to leverage Dex against Fisk comes, he's ready.
Yeah.
And
it's so crafty.
It's so crafty. Yeah, it's like you said, like we don't really see him do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I like that for Dex it doesn't register because he's so caught in Fisk's orbit. This kind of crafty nonsense bullshit has been happening to him on like a daily basis. Like that is the experience of working for Fisk, is this stuff magically happening around you at all times, right?
Well, I like how when he goes into the freezer, you know, he's taken the bags of the people to look at their faces like dead people, and he doesn't flinch. He couldn't give 2 fucks about who these people were, these dead people in a freezer. But you know, as soon as it's Julie, it's like, oh my god. But yeah, exactly. He's just like so immersed in this world, and he's just so blinded by like it's unfathomable that he could be the victim pretty much of what Fisk is embroiling him into. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. I like the way you phrase that. Yeah, it's incomprehensible to him that he's been taken for a ride.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Is that because Dex's entire life is him pretending to be an adult, right? And him putting on a performance for everyone else, that it never occurs to him that someone might be putting on a performance for him?
Yeah, I think there is like a lot of cognitive dissonance going on there. I mean, that's the thing with like, you know, psycho/sociopaths, right? Like this inability to see other, to think anyone else is as sort of like complex or like sort of, you know, as observant as you.
Right. It's that
Yeah.
same mechanism that's like, you know, like I'm the only human and everyone else are like these robot people that are simple and understandable, and I'm the only one of reality, right? Like there's sort of a there's a lack of
it's a violent version of like solipsism, I guess.
Yeah, which we'll talk about toward the end because I wrote a bunch of stuff down about that. It took me until this scene where Matt says it out loud, which is that Fisk is getting married tonight. Okay, I want to say two things. I have misled you, Pat, which is I didn't realize they were getting married until the moment where Matt is like, yeah, they're gonna get married tonight. I don't think he deserves a happily ever after or whatever it is that he says.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't click for me that was what was happening until that moment when Matt says it.
Okay. So what did you think was happening at the beginning?
I think in my head, I had confused that scene with him running for mayor, which I think he does in season 1.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting because I also remember him running for mayor and I thought it was this episode, but...
Right.
Yeah, is that in season 1?
Yeah, it's the end of season 1.
Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Well, it's when they get the expose to Ben from Karen, and it's like, you know, you have to drag this person into the light, and it's as the article goes out, he goes, "I'm coming out of the shadows." Da 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 da.
Yeah.
You know, and he sort of undermines their plan, which is to paint him as a public figure by running for mayor.
Very Penguin-esque.
Yeah, it's very Penguin-esque. It's got some Trump energy to it as well. If you know a lot about how he ended up running for president, and all the lawsuits against him and the bankruptcy stuff, you know, like it's sort of, again, it's playing in that same space. But yeah, it really didn't click for me. But holy shit, like so evil. So evil.
Why is that?
To be like, the last episode, the last press conference he had is he was like, I've been painted as a villain, you know, like, I've been framed by Daredevil. And then this episode, he's like, and I'm going to invite all of my corrupt FBI officials that have done all the killing that I'm blaming on Daredevil, and also all of my criminals that I've been exploiting for cash to my wedding to view it. Come on now. Come on, man.
Yeah, well, it's big boss energy, isn't it? Like, big criminal energy.
Yeah, do you think he's overconfident in this moment? Do you think he thinks he's solved reality? Like,
I mean, it does make a nice sort of like narrative beat that it's in his moment of hubris, all his machinations come back at him, i.e. Dex mainly.
Mostly Dex.
Yeah, mostly Dex, yeah.
Well, also Ray, right? Like the overplay with Ray.
And Ray. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
okay, let me reframe my question then. So, I'm trying to think through the way this character has been crafted in this moment, right? Which is when we first meet him, Fisk is like a untethered, like, he sees no reason to be a public figure. He sees no reason to put on a performance or a front and be anything other than he is, right? To the point where in the first season, all these characters are like, we don't say his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the time season 2 happens, he's kind of a nobody in prison rebuilding his reputation. By the time season 3 happens, he's got a code name, the Kingpin, where he's like, which is a really distinct but different mechanism, which isn't, we don't say his name. It's, we say a thing that represents the influence and the power and the prestige he has. There's kind of a mechanistic reversal of don't say his name. It's like, well, don't say his actual name, but say his true name, Kingpin, right? It's to identify him by the way that he identifies himself. And so this moment, this crescendo of he has the FBI in his pocket. he's able to bring the FBI to his wedding alongside the very criminals that they are charged to take down. There's like a hubris to it, or a particular kind of arrogance that I find difficult to place, where it's sort of because he's still insecure about this in some ways, which we'll get to when we get to the ceremony. But what do you make of him deciding to do this at this moment? Like, is this like a victory lap kind of thing, or is there a different way we can kind of compose it into the story?
I mean, I'm just thinking, does it maybe tie into the title of the episode, A New Napkin? What does that mean? Is that a wedding thing?
I thought it was just the napkin for Foggy and Murdock.
Oh, right. I'm so stupid. Of course, that's it.
Because remember when they're at the episode, the flashback that we got? Yeah, we're at the bar. Yeah.
It is, I think the fact that it is so gaudy, so, show offy and prestigious, and like, yeah, I think it is essentially a victory lap. The fact that he's just literally rebuilt himself from being in prison, like,
Yeah.
It is an Ozymandias type of moment. He's erecting statues of himself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. When you say it like that, yeah, and it's like I also think there's an aspect of, we'll talk about it, but this idea that I brought up real early on, which is this idea that sort of evil defeats itself, right? That very kind of 70s, 80s morality, that the kind of boomer imaginary of like what morality is and how it functions, and that like evil will inherently consume itself. That's obviously very prescient in King's work, but I also think this show rejects that with the way that it concludes. Just putting a pin in it to like frame it here as a thing that will be relevant as we talk toward the end and how you think about what we're talking about.
Also, just an interesting note, they had a Catholic wedding, which is interesting because the priest was a Catholic priest. Yeah. So him and Matt have yet more similarities.
That's so interesting. I didn't pick up on that.
But also, is Vanessa like Italian? Is that why, maybe?
Yeah, her last name is Mariana Dog. Like, she's Italian as fuck.
Yeah, so that might be it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So they get married on the rooftop. The big takeaway moment there is that the priest, as the Catholic priest, as you say, is asking Fix. I'm reading the word fix in my notes, and it fucked me up. He's asking Fisk if, we take her in sickness and health. And Fisk kind of like he's present in this moment, but he's like present as an observer almost. It's very strange. Like, he sort of doesn't react.
It is a curious detail, the fact that he hesitates. Like, what has gone on there? Like, he just related to his thing about seeing himself in the mirror.
I don't know. I think it's him second guessing the fact that, like you said, like, this is his Ozymandias moment. I think it's him second guessing, like, is there something I haven't accounted for? Like, it's that underlying Fisk insecurity of like, he in some ways will always be the 10-year-old holding the hammer in the mirror, being like, was there a different way this could have gone?
It's like everything's like going suspiciously well.
Yes.
Like,
he's waiting for them to shoot
something's about to happen. Yeah, exactly.
But then that, like, he's not present in this moment is so great. Like, the best thing that's ever happened to him, he can't even have that fully because of all the things he's done. And I think that's where the show's morale, like the world morality, comes through, right?
Right. Just like a universal, like Aristotelian morality.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard to watch a show and not feel that sense of like, it takes saints to bloody themselves to take people like this down. And people like this don't get the same happy that the rest of us get. Their happy is compromised happy, right?
Well, Yeah, I mean that's the thing about this whole episode, is that there's this sort of like there's a dissonant, fucked up tone of like you could see the main characters of this episode being Vanessa and Fisk. It's like, you know, it's their wedding day, and it's like, and the whole plot of the episode is about taking them down, separating them, making sure they aren't happy. It's this kind of weird, like, inversion of like making the villain the hero and the hero the villain.
It also reverses the position that Fisk and Vanessa had when we first come to them in this season, which is Fisk is distant, or Vanessa is distant and kind of disengaged, and Fisk is overeager. And now that Vanessa's here and present for it, Fisk is elsewhere.
And
that's really
likewise, Vanessa is really eager. Like when the priest asks Vanessa, she says, "I do," like super quickly.
That's what I mean. Like it's sort of getting what you want isn't getting what you want if you don't get it the way that you want. And Fisk has got everything he's ever wanted, and it was never the way that he wanted to get it. And so it doesn't matter that he has it. Right? And I think that is like the thing that cuts the legs out from under him as a person in this episode, is that like he has everything he ever wanted, right? He's surpassed his father, right? He's achieved more than his father could ever imagine. He has the sophisticated woman that understands the art that he's interested in, that's even more sophisticated than he is. He owns the bank, and he owns the hotel, and he owns all the criminals, and he owns the FBI. But because of how he got there, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all stained. It's all corrupted. Like it doesn't matter that he has it all. And I think that moment is him trying to avoid realizing that, and it being inescapable, potentially.
You're giving a lot of credit to Fisk and saying he has a conscience. Sure.
I don't think it's a conscience so much as it's like, I think it's like an understand. I think it's a reaction to good people. I don't think it's a conscience so much as it is him realizing there are people that think differently.
Okay.
I don't know how to untangle the two, but like, I don't think he feels guilty. I think he just seems. I think he's challenged by the fact that there are people that think differently.
Yeah, it's more like an insecurity maybe than a guilt.
Right, insecurity
like
of
an
a
embarrassment. Guilt. Yeah,
which is a big thing for him as a kid.
Yes, exactly. That's what Karen says to him as well. Like, you know, when she's talking about his mum. It's like, oh, it's the embarrassing things you remember. You know.
Yeah. One thing we didn't say is that Dex shows up in his FBI vehicle. What is in the passenger seat, Patrick?
Oh, it's, you know, just his girlfriend.
It's his girlfriend.
Brought her along for a ride.
She's thawing out nicely.
Yeah, the rigor mortis is about to set in pretty quickly.
And what's he wearing?
And while he's wearing the Daredevil suit, it's such a mixture of deranged shit. It's so good. Like,
it's iconic. The frame, I'll put it on the screen as we talk about it. The shot that you get is the car pulls up and the attendant is like, "Oh, sir," and then it cuts, reverse shot, and it's Dex in the Daredevil armor, smiling, and then Julie's corpse, and he's talking to her, and he's like, "Oh, babe, this is, you know," like, and it's like, "Oh, this." Yeah, exactly. The derangement is next level.
Yeah, it's very good.
Which is what Matt wanted, right? He wanted Dex on tilt. And Dex will be fully on tilt for the rest of the episode in a way that is not going to help him out at all. Yeah, so then we get the wedding ceremony, which we just talked about, and then the first dance. And as they're having their first dance as a wedded couple, something happens, Pat. Everyone's got their phones out and they're filming the first dance, and something occurs that's bad.
Yeah, it's the Dark Knight sort of stuff where everyone's phones suddenly plays the same video. They get hacked or something.
I like how TV sometimes is like, quick shortcut for this thing happening.
Yeah,
it just plays in everyone's phones, I guess. Not sure that's how
Whatever.
phones work, but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, Ray's video plays. And so everybody in the wedding party has the video of Ray's confession playing. And this moment is really the moment where Vanessa realizes it's probably all over, and Fisk is kind of in a state of denial, I feel. Is that how you read this?
I mean, I feel like Vanessa is more attuned to how fucked they are, definitely. And that's why she says she's trying to comfort Wilson, because there is nothing really that you could say that would sort of fix this situation. So in fact, when they get to the suite, she says that we have to run right now. We have to be smart. So she realizes that it's sort of all over for them, and she's just trying to keep Wilson from flipping out, like sort of losing his cool.
Yeah. It's like it's Breaking Bad in a big type of way in this second as this is happening. And what I quite enjoy is it feels like that the same way that it's like everything is collapsing in around them. And it reminded me of that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where it's Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle are dancing, and she says there's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. You and your friends better batten down the hatches, because when it hits, you're all going to wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us. But it's an inversion of that, where it's the rich villain realizing that the proletariat is here, the people are here, and they have something to say, versus The Dark Knight Rises, where it's the millionaire vigilante who has to break himself down to his constituent parts and rebuild himself to take down this threat. I like that the show continues to play in the same space and the same themes, but has its own thing to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. And
it is
what
weird
happens?
That it's like a class thing. It's just,
it is a class
I don't
thing.
know. Yeah, it is, but it's just strange that like a Marvel show is like concerned with this kind of stuff.
I mean, hey, you wouldn't see this in a modern Marvel picture, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the mouse would approve of of such socialist views, Pat. What happens next, Pat?
What does happen next? They flee to the suite.
Well, the first thing is Dex grabs the mic. So in the red armor, he steps on stage and he says, "I'd like to make a toast. Julie and I wish you the absolute best."
And then
Cold.
Hurls the microphone.
Do you think that would be a kill shot? If you got hit in the head with a mic?
Yeah, mics are heavy.
Yeah, it depends on the mic. I feel
a few
like
kilos.
the mic I'm using would kill you. I feel like the shotgun that you're on, maybe not. I don't know.
Well, the mics they have at like venues and stuff like that, where you can like pass them around to people.
Oh, they
like,
got a
those
heft.
Typically, yeah, they got a heft. Yeah.
I would simply duck with my superior reflexes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it wouldn't be a
Nothing
problem
goes
for
over
me.
my head. I would catch it.
I would simply catch it
too quick. Yeah.
Correct. Now that's a fun Marvel reference. That's an Easter egg for those of you who are au fait with the MCU.
The only very astute viewers will pick that.
Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
Only. Yeah. Shout out Dave Bautista. God, he's so good in Blade Runner. Anyway, okay, a few things. I want to kind of try and put this in place before we get to the big conclusion, because that happens very, very quickly. Dex and Matt are both playing defense against the FBI for a moment as they pull out their guns and they start shooting, and the ballroom evacuates as Fisk and Vanessa run. And very quickly, Matt sort of absconds and heads up to the penthouse too. As you said, they escape. And I think it's really noteworthy. Dex lets SEC Hadley live. Not because he chooses to, but because he just runs out of bullets and couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got bigger fish to fry in this moment. Like, he's he levels the gun on her and he clicks it dry and he just flings it at her head as he leaves.
Yeah. does that reveal anything about Dex? I don't think so. I think it's just that he ran out of bullets.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But I think it's like a blunt practicality. Like when I said he was on tilt before, like he is after the mission objective. He's not trying to get a KD ratio. He's like, I got to capture that flag, bro. Like he is on task, and it's like this is just a distraction that he can do without.
Yeah, for sure. And I love how he flings it back as well.
Yeah, he's not even looking.
It's like a boomerang.
Yeah, cool dudes don't look at guns when they throw them at FBI agents.
That's right.
It's a classic trope.
And he's also, just before that, he's throwing dinner knives at
dude, he's killing dudes with forks and knives and shit. Yeah.
Just being pincushions for Dex. Yeah.
Cutlery is a crucial tool for the Dex apparatus this episode.
Oh, yeah. It definitely is. Yeah.
Silverware, lethal. Stay away from it. And what I like is that the way that Fisk reacts to this is he says to Vanessa, I should have never let Dex get so close to you. Right? Like he kind of frames it as this failing of Vanessa. It's such an insular way of reacting to this moment. Vanessa's thinking about the rest of the world and like Hell's Kitchen and like what they're going to do next. And all Fisk can do is think about them.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, we have to run. But his instinct is like, no, well, obviously I failed you because I let him get too close. Like there's something deeply conservative. It's all about us, like in our family, and fuck the, like there's some implicit thing there to the class thing you just talked about. Like, I don't know, there's something there.
Right. I think it kind of seems like Fisk is more mad that his wedding got ruined than him being ousted as a criminal. You know, it's like a thing about pride almost.
Well, that's the insecurity thing that we talked about before, where he was always insecure that it would go wrong because of him.
And
it gives him a safe vector for it to go wrong. Which makes him even more insecure because it's still not his fault in his head yet. And it will be. The biggest move this show makes is that Fisk realizes this is on him. It takes a minute to settle in. So talk to me about the fight scene, Pat. We kind of get a three-way situation. Dex is trying to kill anyone he can. Indiscriminate. Okay.
Yeah. This is so weird. This is a writing room concept. You know, it's just like, what if there was a three-way fight? And I'm not saying it doesn't work. I love it, but like it is a very comic booky, like power level, like high concept idea of but I think I don't know, kind of is executed well. Just all the blocking of everyone's priorities at certain stages of the scene. You know, who's closest to who. I don't know. It's done really well. I love it.
What I like is that every character has two dramatic beats, and in doing that, you know everything you need to know about this fight as it's happening, right? The first dramatic beat for Matt is that he and for Fisk, because they square off and they bellow at each other and they clash, right? The first dramatic beat for Vanessa is that she sort of hides initially, right? The first dramatic beat for Dex is that he comes in and he tries to kill Vanessa, which is Vanessa's kind of she's panicking. Matt kicks the shit out of Dex at one point, like just has his number in their exchange, which is the second beat for Dex. And then the other beat for Fisk and Vanessa is that Fisk gives Vanessa his bulletproof jacket, which we see as he's kind of blocking what would be lethal cutlery otherwise. And then the final beat for Matt as kind of the protagonist, and the final beat for Dex is that, as we said in the summary, I couldn't think of a better way to frame it than Fisk just picks up Dex and like pushes his spine against a brick column.
Yeah, it's so bluntly practical. And it just ends the fight right there.
Yeah, and then he's knocked out, and then the final beat of this fight is Matt boxing Fisk to the floor. And of course, as he's punching him, the last punch, off goes the blood onto what, Pat?
Onto Rabbit in a Snowstorm. How symbolic.
Oh, how symbolic, Patrick. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Okay. Let's pin the Rabbit in the Snowstorm bit, because I think that's probably like a big thematic thing. But do you have what Matt says? Yeah, he lets out this primal scream. I've written down what Matt says if you haven't, if I shall relay.
No, I didn't write it down.
So the setup is it's Matt, and he's got Fisk, and Fisk is kneeling, and he's covered in blood, and there's blood on Rabbit in a Snowstorm, what Vanessa is watching on. In Fisk's bulletproof jacket, which says something. Like again, the show just refuses to be uninteresting. Like, Fisk takes off his own protection in order to save Vanessa, which is what makes him vulnerable for Matt to take him down in this moment. And Matt correctly, in the physical sense and the schematic sense, realizes that's the vulnerability, right?
Right.
Fisk will do anything to protect her, even make himself vulnerable. And so he takes advantage of that, right? And so Matt says to Fisk, quote, "God knows I want to, but you don't get to destroy who I am."
You will go back to prison, and you will live the rest of your miserable life in a cage, knowing you'll never have Vanessa. That this city rejected you. It beat you. I beat you. You'll keep my secret, and you won't harm Karen Page or fucking Nelson or anyone else. Because if you do, I will go after your wife. And I will prove Vanessa ordered the murder of Agent Rabbit. And like her husband, she'll spend the rest of her life in a cell.
And then he strikes a deal.
They shake hands, don't they?
Yeah.
And like I said in the summary, you know, they both make a deal with their respective devil. It's such powerful symbolism that is so mundane. That's what makes it powerful. It's elemental rather than pretentious.
Yeah, I can see that.
Matt Murdock, the good Samaritan that is called the devil, shakes hands with the ill intent, the devil itself. And the devil shakes hands with the thing that is called devil by the thing that is the ill intent. It's that kind of Lucifer God agreement, which is like, I'm not going to kill you, but I will send you elsewhere. I will eject you from this reality, right? Instead of being foregone to hell and being a fallen angel, Fisk is locked in a cage, right?
It's like these cosmically ordained rivals, you know, where neither can trump the other. They're in just an endless fight. They finally make an agreement, and it's sort of it is very like biblical.
Yeah, they strike a covenant.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, that's, you know, it's a big part of what the epic is doing at a structural level. We got two options, Pat. We can take a very quick break now, before we talk about the symbolism of Rabbit in a Snowstorm and perhaps the show writ large through its resolution, or we can power through. It's up to you.
Let's take a little break.
All right, we're going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to come back and we'll talk about the symbolism of Rabbit in a Snowstorm, how the show wraps up, and then just kind of our general thoughts, and then we'll foreshadow what's to come, which those of you who stay right to the end will already know the kind of production schedule. So we'll be back in, for you, after whatever these messages are, and then we will get into some of my favorite stuff about the show. So stick with us. We will be right back. This season of Daredevil in the Details is brought to you by the Maynard Trigg series. These are my Dying Earth science fantasy, steampunk coming of age novels. The third book is out now. You can grab the first book, Maynard Trigg and the Creature Beneath the Veil, hardback or paperback. It's on special right now at underink.press. Appreciate any support you guys give. These books are one of my favorite things I've ever done. I'm super proud of them, and I would love you guys to check it out. If you're interested in the stuff we do, I guarantee you'll enjoy these books. Head to underink.press and grab your copy today. All right, let's talk about probably the show's biggest kind of thematic through line, which is Rabbit in a Snowstorm. So, in the conclusion of this show, imagery that we open with when we meet Fisk, just Fisk in the art gallery staring at Rabbit in a Snowstorm, is now permanently smeared with Fisk's blood. Talk to me about this moment and what this means, or the thoughts, the things it evokes for you.
So, we've previously talked about the meaning of Rabbit in a Snowstorm, what it symbolizes, this blank canvas onto which Fisk wants to project what he can be, what he wants to be, unmarred by, his past, his foundation. He can build himself into whatever titan he wants. Okay, so yeah, he lost the painting, and in recovering it, once again, he obtained it through tainted means. He could, it wasn't him, but through him, this really heinous evil act was committed to this innocent old lady, and once again, he got it through, let's say, dubious means. It is now, with the blood smeared on it, it now properly reflects the true nature of Fisk and his world, that which is tainted by violence and blood. And despite him wanting to cast himself as the angel opposite Matt's devil, and he's got the white suit and everything, and likewise the white suit also gets tainted with blood, as does the painting. And that his legacy wrapped up in trying to erect statues of himself, metaphorically, like Ozymandias. The truth is that it is marred by a terrible violence, and a terrible evil, and that's who he is.
Yeah. And it's the fact that, like, if he's the wolf as he's positioned by the rightful owner of this piece of art, if he's the wolf hunting the rabbit, the truth becomes that, like, the idea of Rabbit in a Snowstorm is that, as you say, like, he projects onto it, but it's also the real meaning of the artwork itself outside of Fisk is that it's like Rabbit in a Snowstorm. If you have community and you can't single someone out in that way, then you can't hunt them, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's fitting then that the wolf's blood ends up painted across the canvas as the thing that's found, right? It's not that we ought to seek the rabbit in the snowstorm. It's that we ought to deal with the wolves that attempt to find it, that attempt to impress their will upon reality, that attempt to victimize those behind the canvas, right? And that's why I think it's so poignant that last time it was the blood of this Holocaust survivor on the back of the picture, and now it's Fisk's blood on the front, right? It's there's some symbolism there around, like, you can kill one of the rabbits in the snowstorm, but you can't kill them all. You know what you can do? You can kill a wolf because they stand out. They make themselves big. They make themselves vicious. They make themselves violent. They become observable in their attempt to conquer the rest of reality, in this case, the snowstorm. And It sounds saccharine, but I think it's a really earnest indictment of the type of white collar villainy, and obviously Fisk is capable of the other animalistic villainy, right? Which is where the wolf thing comes from. But it's this real indictment of like people like this who think that they can poison reality against everyone else for their own benefit, and that like eventually it all comes out in the wash, right? Doesn't matter how much you bleach it. Doesn't matter if there is one red garment, it all becomes stained pink. And this is that moment really rendered visually for us in the story. And it's also the symbol of their love, right? That this is the thing that they connected over. This painting is now forever stained, and maybe has always been stained by this truth, which is that it's co-signed in blood.
Another thing maybe is that this painting is by far the most potent reflection symbol of Vanessa and Fisk's love, and the person who taints it is Matt. He punches the fuck out of Fisk, and it's, it could be seen as revenge. If you violate my sacred symbol, institution of, killing Father Lantom in the Catholic Church, I'm going to violate your sacred symbol, which is the painting.
That's really interesting, yeah. I think perhaps what we're trying to paint around is there is no single one like, oh, this is what Rabbit in a Snowstorm means in this story. It's so evocative as a piece that we could probably sit here and talk for an hour about different interpretations of like what this moment means. And if you put it in context with Dex wearing the armor that's red, and then the man in black and the man in white, you can start to think about different compositions of what villainy means and what being the devil means, and like what being a saint means, and all of these things, right? The fact that Matt is dressed in black and is unnoteworthy, right? But that he has a collar of red. We might think about the ways in which priests and nuns wear black and then they have a collar of white. We might put those in conversation with each other. If we think about priests, they wear a collar of white, which is the color that Fisk is wearing. And so he's overcompensating for the villainy that lies beneath, right? Instead of wearing a collar of white, he's all in white. And we can think about the ways in which for Catholicism, those things ricochet off each other. And the ways in which Father Lantom in season 1 pitched some of that as ideology. And the thing that makes it so effective in being this evocative symbolism in this moment is that it's so elemental, right? It's a fist fight. It's a boxing match that Matt wins, right? Mm-hmm. He does the same thing that Jack couldn't do, right? Like, battling Jack couldn't let his pride go. He couldn't stick around for the people that cared about him. And in this moment where Matt is standing over Fisk and he can't break his neck, it's Matt foregoing his pride and trying to outthink the situation and trying to be better and ascend above, right? He's following Lantom's example, not his father's.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what makes this symbolism so potent. Is it's not just the baggage that Fisk has, but it's also the kind of position that Matt is in, where we know he doesn't want to do this, but he's willing to, and he's staring at the thing that Fisk has been staring at since he was 10 years old, and he sees a different outcome than Fisk does. He stares at that blank canvas and he imagines another version of the world that Fisk is incapable of.
Mm-hmm.
It's really powerful to me.
Sorry, I'm just processing that. I'm thinking about in context of battling Jack's decision, right? So what's his thing that like
Pride, Maddie. You know, that's his.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Okay, so Battling Jack has a thing he needs to do, which is spend a lifetime with his son, as Matt puts it, and he doesn't. I mean, it's a bit weird to use the word pride in the context of Matt's decision. I get it's more I don't know, what would you call it, like a necessity that you put on yourself, like this sort of like a delusion almost that this is the only way, like a decision made out of fear, a delusion made out of fear.
It's about
like just
faith.
Yeah.
There's another way.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. And yeah, so in that sense, I suppose Matt's decision to not murder Fisk is the reverse of his father's. It's the resolution to his father's decision. Is that he makes that decision out of faith, out of what he knows is the right decision in his deep down in his heart, and not out of this this doomed idea of what is necessary that he thinks
right, which
he incorrectly thinks is the answer.
Yeah, well, because faith as a concept is like the denial of observation so that belief can be preserved, right? You look at this situation and every outcome, it seems like, is going to result in Fisk coming back and being a problem. And Matt decides to have faith in the potential for things to go differently. And also decides to have faith in Fisk's love for Vanessa, as corrupt and badly resolved as it is. He has faith in the fact that like Fisk will do the right thing to protect Vanessa. And it's Matt having faith in people and deciding in this moment, ignorant or otherwise, that Fisk is a person. And I think that for him is the hardest thing, because that's the thing he had to suffocate in order to make the potential of killing him possible. Is he had to build him up as this mythic, this poetic, mythopoetic figure, this evil, this towering presence that needed to be slain in the biblical sense, right? The Lucifer, the devil, to be slain. And then the way that he has to resolve it is by realizing this is a person, and people are inherently trying to do the right thing. And the way that he sways Fisk is by being like, you care about this person and you'll do anything to protect them, which is how Matt feels about Foggy and Karen, which is the thing that he thought Fisk wasn't capable of, that the devil isn't capable of that. And it's the devil saying it to Fisk. It's the devil of Hell's Kitchen, recognizing in himself a kinship with Fisk, recognizing common ground.
Yeah. I love how all this is, the elements of all of this sequence are just an inverted, the iconography and stuff is inverted, right? Just like the devil being the hero here and making the moral decision, and
yeah,
it's like postmodern reconstructions of like Greek myths or something, for example.
I think it's sort of the it is a reconstructionist approach to like thinking about morality. And in some ways I think it indicts the structural apparatus of the church as a kind of point of failure, and instead elevates individuals within that structure as worthy. Like, I don't think that at any point this show assumes that, how do I say this without sounding incredibly condescending? I don't think at any point this show assumes that the church is like a, by definition, functionally good apparatus. I think it's the people Matt happens to know in the church.
Yeah.
It happens to be that Lanton was a good dude that accepted anyone, Catholic or not. And then also Matt's mother is here. And like that's a different impulse than the church's impulse. Manages to walk that line where it doesn't feel like it's evangelizing. It feels like it almost works despite the fact that it's the church as one of the institutions.
I mean, okay, forgive me. I'm not super, I don't know a whole lot about this stuff. I have been learning a bit more recently, but this thing about finding the truth in your innermost person, that's quite a Lutheran thing, isn't it? Rather than like a Catholic idea.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah. But then, I mean,
which is interesting.
This will be unpopular for those of you with faith listening, but I mean, like, you know, religious kind of syncretism is a big historically observed fact, which is like the longer religions go on in proximity, the longer they start to reflect each other and repeat behaviors of each other, right? It's no coincidence that a lot of Islam and a lot of Christianity look similar and have different divergent points, but like they are very, very, very similar if you get down to the brass tacks of what's happening. And the work of those institutions, not particularly Islam, it's interested in its own priorities, but in particular in a Western context, the kind of Christian structures, right? The Catholic Church, you know, your Lutherans, your born again, even your Mormons, their work is to distance themselves as thoroughly as possible in the hopes that you never think about the fact that that's true, right? It is a threat to the concept of how these institutions function in the West that there is so much overlap with Islam, and I think that it speaks to an impulse this show shares, which is going, hey, just because it's a faith-based institution doesn't mean it's not an institution, right? In the same way that the Hand is an institution that is faith-based, in the same way that the Chase is an institution that's faith-based, but also so too the FBI is a secular institution, in the same way the police are a secular institution, in the same way the courts are a secular institution. These things don't, like, the fact that one of them is religious and one of them isn't is irrelevant to the thing the show is doing, which I think if you put this in conversation with people that are deep in those faiths and have political agendas to defend those faiths, I think they would be threatened by the way this show imagines religion as a kind of ahistoric, like, part of everyday life. It's not a sacred institution. It's a small component of how some people just simply are, and you know, the nature of their relation, in the same way that really good art, really good writing that includes LGBTIQ plus people imagines it as a small facet of the person they are. I think it eschews the instinct to make it one's entire self, and instead makes it a composite part of what makes a full person a person and what informs their character. And I think that is like indelibly threatening to the concept of the apparatus of these spiritual institutions, because so much of why they have sustained themselves is because they're able to be the foundation of your entire life, right? They're your spirituality, it's your family, it's your entire social circle. It's not just your social circle when you're hanging out with your friends, but it's also like when you join a workplace, you find the other people that have the same fundamental beliefs, and then you insulate further. And like it, I think the idea of it being so exchangeable with other things, right? It's like this will sound demeaning, but it's not how I mean it. I mean it schematically. It's the same thing as being really like having a deep connection to, like, maybe you're a horror movie guy. You know, James, a friend of the show, is a horror movie guy, and that's a big part of his personality. And the show imagines religion as a similar kind of deep part of what makes you who you are. But it's not necessarily a defining characteristic of the relationships you have in reality with both yourself and others.
Yeah. So, sorry, just to bring it back to like how we originally got onto this topic. Are you saying that like is essentially the way the show wraps up the the context of Catholicism in Matt's life is that it was essentially just one part of his decision to not kill Fisk.
100%.
Among many. Yeah.
I think it's him accepting that it's not a... Because at the start of the season, he rejects it so thoroughly. This is him accepting...
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I kind of forgot that was that was a plot in the season.
This is him accepting that, like, it's a small part of him, but it doesn't define him.
Yes, yeah, okay, I see, yeah.
And the fact that he goes to his actual mother, who happens to be a nun, to be like, can you be my mother, basically, when I need advice like this? He doesn't come to her as a nun, he comes to her as, Matt Murdock, I'm your son, kind of thing. Yeah. Do you have anything more to say on that, or should we quickly wrap up the Maggie-Matt convo and how this all kind of shakes out? There's still a lot to talk about. Like, I don't want to kind of, but in the interest of time, is there anything you want to talk about before we get to Maggie?
No, well, we talked a bunch.
We did it. Yeah, hey, I think we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. Yeah, I had looked into acquiring an equivalent of Rabbit in a Snowstorm just to have in my life.
Oh yeah.
Very expensive. The texture turns out to be quite difficult to reproduce. So.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. I did look. Not on this salary, baby. So Matt goes to visit Sister Maggie. This is the next scene we get after this big confrontation. I've genuinely transcribed the whole scene, but do you want to summarize for us so I don't have to read the whole thing out? I was so taken by it that I just was writing it down as it happened.
No, I was there with you. I love this coda. It's essentially Matt has been in such emotional, spiritual turmoil throughout the season. You know, his faith in not only the church and his own religion, but like his faith in morality and the goodness of people have just been shaken. He becomes very pessimistic this season. He pushes away all his friends. He doesn't sort of believe anymore in the value of being good or kind, or having good relationships with people. And after all he's been through this season, the fact that things work out, the fact that he doesn't corrupt his soul in murdering Fisk, he retains it. He's essentially the same person but better. He's still got his friends. He realizes that it's all worked out essentially, and it's encapsulated in that speech when he says, the tragedy of being human is that you don't get to see the beauty of God's tapestry. It's only from the perspective of God you can see the intricate beauty of how all these threads connect.
Yeah. I think there's two lines specifically I want to pull out. So Matt's monologue to Maggie, which I will insert in full. RIP monetization. None of this has been monetizable, but that's fine. That's why we have Patreon. Head to patreon.com/ZeroIndent. It helps me spend all the time that I do on this stuff. So I'll insert the whole thing, but for our benefit, Pat. So Matt says, this is him to Maggie.
Last time we spoke, I confronted Father Lantham. I was angry. I'd change that if I could.
If God allowed that, there'd be no future. Just people endlessly rewriting the past.
I think he was trying to tell me that for a long time. His last words were, "Forgive us."
Do you think that's possible?
He told me something years ago when this happened that I never forgot. See, I was pretty angry at God and bitter towards his world. How could a loving God blind me? Why? Anyway, he told me God's plan is like a beautiful tapestry.
And the tragedy of being human is that we only get to see it from the back. With all the ragged threads and the muddy colors. And we only get a hint at the true beauty that would be revealed if we could see the whole pattern on the other side. As God does. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about it recently because I realize I've made some bad choices and hurt people that I love without meaning to.
You don't always know when you start down a false path.
No, you don't. And that's my point. I realized that if my life had turned out any differently, that I would never have become Daredevil. And although people have died on my watch, people who shouldn't have, there are countless others that have lived. So maybe it is all part of God's plan. Maybe my life has been exactly as it had to be.
You have a generous heart, Matthew. To see the good in so much pain.
Not always. In fact, Father Lantham used to help me with that. Help me see the errors of my ways. I could use someone else to help me with that now. Once in a while.
I'm a nun, Matthew. Helping is what I was called to do.
It's this sort of like it's like an apology by some other mechanism, right? Like it's sort of him being like, I don't forgive you, but also what's our path forward here?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
Right.
really like the eloquence of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's him going, oh, life is pretty strange, isn't it? Like, you know, the paths we take, the stories we have, it's all. In fact, it's yeah. I guess if you're thinking about it in terms of Matt's relationship to his mother, it's calling on what Father Lantham said to him, which is that, you know, if we grow up without your parents, you don't come to see them as people. And this is him coming to see Maggie as a person, you know, by drawing the parallel between, you know, his experiences and between his journey and this idea of what he's presenting, this, you know, tapestry that you can't see the whole pattern of. You know, it's sort of indirectly sort of encompassing Maggie's story as well, about how, maybe Matt doesn't fully forgive her, but, you know, it's life, man. Like, you know, that's just, we all do what we can. We're all trying to do more good than harm, as he says to Karen. You know.
Right. Yeah, it's a really, like, it's heartwarming without being cheesy or saccharine, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a cosmic wisdom, you know. Like, it's a bit weird to think of it as saccharine. I think it is just this. Yeah, it is just sounds like ancient wisdom.
Yeah, that's kind of my point, I guess, is that, like, it lands so well because it doesn't feel like anything other than what it is. Like, it's not.
Right.
And I think it's because he doesn't apologize. I genuinely think that's what it is. I think if he'd started with, like, I wanted to apologize for the way I've acted, this would feel different. It's that he...
Yeah.
It's that he reproduces the same mechanism that Lantham does. When, in dealing with these complicated moral concepts, instead of addressing it head on, he produces a parable to talk around it. And the parable this time happens to be about Lantham. So he's almost like Jesus Christ, the show's awesome. He's practicing the thing that Lantham did for him. He's trying it on for size. Where he's like, what if I tried a little parable right now to try and express how I'm feeling without telling you directly in a condescending way?
Yeah, carrying on his legacy.
That's so cool. God, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. Yeah. This show is so good.
Oh yeah.
Like especially in your last episode. That makes me so mad. It's so good. I love that. I love the fact that it's him. It's him trying to take up that mantle, take up that legacy. I love it. Yeah. We then get Lantern's service. There's lots of stuff that we can unpack there. I probably won't read the whole thing. I did write it down again. Can you summarize the eulogy?
It essentially goes something like, Father Lantern, while he was a Catholic priest, he accepted everyone, and he wanted everyone to feel loved and accepted and safe, and he wanted everyone to live good lives. And the way he went about that was by helping everyone he could. He was always framed things in terms of what could I give, and that is his legacy, and he's made the world a better place for it. Is essentially
100%. Yeah, and the fact that like it wasn't about the religion, right? And I think that was a big part of what we talked about with Lantern, where like it didn't feel like it never felt like he was a guy that fully believed in his religion so much as he found that a particularly useful moral apparatus and a way to live your life.
Yeah, it's a good way of framing it.
Yeah, and this is Matt reflecting that. What is the bit? He goes, he welcomed everyone here, Catholic or not, right? And then he had a different expectation of the Catholic people that were there. And I love that it, Matt's like, it's half of Hell's Kitchen is here today, right? This is a monumental figure within this borough of New York, and the legacy for him was the people and the community, and that's who's turned up. It's sort of it's like an auto-fulfilling thing to say, and it's touching that Matt manages to kind of deliver this in the same valence as his conversation with Maggie, where it's very wise and practical and not mired in like he doesn't talk about Lantern as a great man. He talks about I don't know, there's this particular tone this ending approaches itself with that manages to avoid being too something.
Yeah, I feel like there's like so much purpose in his speech, like conviction. It's not platitudes or like, he's not saying, oh, everyone, he was beloved. That's obviously he was fucking beloved. Like he's actually getting to the root of what's Lantern's impact on the world was, and what they should do with it moving forward,
Right. And I think that's really important because it's Matt expressing the thing that Lantern gave him that Battling Jack never had. Which is fitting given that Battling Jack and Maggie have the relationship that they do, and fitting that Lantern and Maggie have the relationship that they do, right? Which is like it's fitting to me that this for Matt is like, this is having Lantern in his life is the thing that let him make the different decision when faced with Fisk than the decision that Battling Jack made when faced with his situation, the moment of his pride. And it's Matt acknowledging that and realizing that that's the thing that has made him who he is.
Yeah, in a way, Lantern is the progenitor of like what the show's about. He is like the genesis of like the themes in that he influences Matt to such a degree that this ending happens that we've been discussing for the last hour and a half. Yeah, he's the heart of the show. Yeah,
and it's such a fitting send off for him in this moment. And I love it. And I think it's proof again that like, we talk about killing your darlings or whatever. It's proof that it doesn't have to be the end of the thing that characters can do in your story. You can still have them be influences and have them change things. They don't have to be on screen to do that. And what I especially love is the way that this kind of translates into the way the show itself wraps up, right? Which is at the Nelson Butcher. and Matt and Karen are their vibe. The vibe is flirty as fuck. It's back. Matt's back. And when Matt's back, the Matt and Karen is back. And it's like, my note here says, please keep it together. Stop drinking his whiskey. I feel uncomfortable. Y'all should get a room.
It's a big no-no. Any women out there looking to date David here, don't drink his whiskey. It's rule number 1.
Well, no, I mean, listen. I just think vibe-wise, it's off the charts, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone's in a great mood. Everything's sort of back to where it should be. And yeah, Foggy, Foggy's like, oh, what are you gonna do next? Blah, blah, blah. And then again, the chemistry crazy. Karen kind of leans over to Matt, and he puts his hand on her arm and he goes, he's writing something. Karen goes, he's writing something, and he goes, yeah, I kind of figured that. He's writing our names, isn't he? He's writing our names. And Karen's like, well, I'm not a lawyer. And they're like, Foggy's like, oh, you. Is that how does it go?
Yeah, that is how it goes. But I'm just I feel like your prospective season 4 would just be a rom-com, like a fanfic, an AU fanfic of Karen and Matt doing their taxes and going to the beach as a couple or something.
Yeah,
you love this shit.
3 seasons of just their relationship. It's not.
Yeah.
He doesn't dress up anymore in the costume. It's just normal suburban life, living in Hell's Kitchen. Yeah. I'd be down for that. I mean, Mad Men kind of does that. Like, after about 4 seasons, it's like, yeah, domestic life, I guess. That's interesting. And it is, genuinely, if you do it right. I just love them, Pat. Okay? Is that such a crime?
I do too. No, I'm with you. It's you'll see how much I'm with you in the next episode.
Okay. All right. Do you have any thoughts on this other than it rules?
This ending sequence as a whole, or the Matt and Karen?
As a whole. We can talk about the sting in a second. And
it's low key pedestrian. Everything's right, everything's cheery, and it's just a great happy ending. What's left to say?
Yeah, what more do you want? All's well that ends well. Yeah. For now.
For now.
Speaking of for now, we get our sting, which is Dex he's getting his spine fixed with cogmium steel, which is a real, we had to make up a thing. Cogmium?
Is that made up?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because in the comics, he has an indestructible skeleton.
What? Why are there so many different imaginary metals in Marvel? I swear they keep making new elements and stuff. It's like, bro, you already have vibranium and stuff like that. Why can't
do you think
that
Netflix didn't get approval for that?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, they were like, nah, that's gonna be. We're keeping that for Black Panther, bro.
Yeah, maybe.
You can't be having it. Also, the way they set that up is it's the only vibranium in the world is Cap's shield. They just have it for this guy, this dude.
Yeah, okay. All right. I suppose that's a good point. But why does it have to be imaginary? Why not just say titanium?
Why am I defending Marvel? I don't like most of their stuff. What was that? That was bizarre.
Marvel's champion over here.
Yeah, I love all those bland films, and I'll defend them to a T. No, I mean, it is weird, but it is clearly a setup, which, based on some of the coverage I've been consuming, it seems like they're going to follow through on. But yeah, we get a sting, and it's very superhero. It has that Sam Raimi vibe, where it's a weird, creepy surgery room, and then there's the camera's and then it does a punch zoom.
It is so Sam Raimi. You're so right.
And you get the bullseye eye.
Yeah. Which
is not a thing in the comics, but I love it here. It's cool looking.
Well, it's meant to be a reflection of something he's looking at, right?
Yeah. But I like that it's it's cool. It makes it a target. It's a target for those of you not watching. Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, I mean, it wraps up the way that you'd expect, and the way that you want. And what more could you possibly ask for, Pat, from a TV show to end the way that you always wanted it to?
Yeah, I know. That's why I was, even now with the announcement of the new show, I always thought if I'll be content if they never make anything again. In fact, I kind of don't want them to. I want them to just leave this crystallized as a perfect series. Yeah.
It feels like it earns its ending and it sticks it, and you go, cool, I'm happy to move on with my life.
Yeah.
And like this has to be top 3 TV shows on my list of all time.
Yeah.
I think so.
Damn.
Like, it's so good. It's so good, Pat. I don't know what else it's like really jostling with for that. I guess it's like Mad Men and BoJack. Really, it's two maybe Andor season 1. It's competing with.
Oh yeah, you do love a bit of Andor, don't you?
How can you not? It's perfect TV.
I need to rewatch that again as well because it is amazing. It's amazing. But it's hard for me because two slots on my list are taken up by Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So
yeah, Saul is
not really fair competition.
Oh yeah, Better Call Saul might be the best TV show.
Yeah,
and that's tricky. Like, just period, and that's hard to. It feels like that's unfair to put in conversation with everything else. I feel.
Yeah, it's in its own tier. I get that.
It's Gilligan at the height of his powers. Like, it's like, like that doesn't seem fair to everyone else making shows.
Okay, to narrow it down though, I think in terms of, I don't want to say Marvel as a whole because I think I still like Guardians better than
Guardians is strong.
But in terms of Marvel TV shows, yep, this is the best.
Easy.
Best of the best. Yeah.
Well, it's not hard given what they've been putting out lately. I will say Loki season 2 is better than it has any right to be. It really feels like they just went on a writing tear and they were like, what if we did a good one of these?
Yeah, Loki is pretty good. It's top 3 Marvel shows, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just started rewatching Jessica Jones today.
Oh yeah.
While I was doing something else. I was doing the dishes. And that show rules.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Season 1 is so it's so dark.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing.
David Tennant choice casting for Kilgrave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean everyone's choice casting, but look, I mean that's is that unbelievably the end of our coverage of this episode? And I mean, we should talk a little bit about the show as a whole, maybe, but like, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It's a good episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, ahead of us, we have 2 things we're going to do. We've got your season 4 spec script, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also are going to do a bonus on She-Hulk. I'm like 4 episodes into She-Hulk. Whew. Whew. Yeah.
Your inability to just watch one episode is
can't do it,
and then suffering for it is hilarious to me. But that's your me. Fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I imagine it'll be a short conversation we end up having, but that'll be in the feed at some point, probably before. Chronologically, this is going to be confusing. So we're going to record your perspective season and then do the bonus episode after that. They'll be reversed in the feed most likely. However, I think looking back on the kind of coverage and where we found ourselves, I think that Daredevil as a story finds success because it's willing to take risks and become a new thing each season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's this religious epic in season 1, and then you get Frank Castle and it becomes this like conspiracy and this conspiracy entwined with this supernatural comic book story. And then in this season it's like a straightforward like espionage crime procedural for the most part. You know, it's willing to take the risk each season to change its kind of genre and do something new. And that's what I really admire about where this ends up as a story.
Yeah, it's bold. Which is that's a quality that's not seen much these days in the newer Marvel stuff. It's they just I don't know. I think big companies like that confuse boldness and ambition with like subversiveness, you know, stuff that you don't expect, which is, you know, Game of Thrones syndrome kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, spectacle, right?
Yeah, spectacle. Yeah.
I think it's telling that reflecting on how we've come here, how we arrive at this conclusion, it has that same quality of something like Mad Men, where I suppose in contrast to something like BoJack and probably in lockstep with Saul, the sort of, you can tell someone what happened, but it's how it happened that matters, right? Like you can be like this thing happened in this episode, but the thing that, but like, and someone goes, oh, okay. And you go, no, you don't understand. Like Pete knows who Dawn is. Like, and you go, okay. And then you go, and yeah, Bert says it doesn't matter. And you're like, all right. But watching it happen is a different experience.
Yeah.
Being present in the scene is a different experience. And I think that's where like storytelling that is of this mode, which is kind of almost in opposition to the spectacle, which is like quiet and confident and about process and procedure and about objects in space and people in space moving through time. It requires a level of kind of interior certainty and interior vision that I think a lot of modern Marvel stuff doesn't have.
Yeah, which is interesting considering how much we've talked about or speculated about how much unique vision was behind each season of this show. Because it certainly does seem like it is a vision. Like it is a coherent it's a coherent imaginative what's that word? Not original. I can't think of it, but you know, it does seem like someone's creative.
It's singular.
Singular. I don't know. Abstract of a TV show, of a season of a TV show, at least for each season.
Yeah, it feels like Drew Goddard and Jeff Loeb sat down and went, "This is the show we could make, and here are the seasons we could do," and that sustained throughout. Like that was a strong enough vision to sustain.
That's the word I was looking.
Inspired. You forgot the word inspired, Pat. Come on, bro.
I don't know.
Listen, it's a late recording for us. All right, we apologize. Yeah. No, I think that's right. Yeah, it has some kind of, it has the thing in art that is like that you can't quite grasp, right? Whatever the thing is that we all as like artists kind of strive to put forward on the page, like it has that thing. It has that ephemeral kind of and trying to put forward into the world something that has never been uttered before, right? The first breath of this thing. And it has that unique quality of the whole time, even the bad parts feel like they fit in properly, right? It's like Abed says at the end of Community, like it's okay for TV to have good days and bad days. The point of TV is that it's there and it is a part of us. And I think Daredevil, even the stuff that we didn't love and the fact that there's kind of this intervention halfway through with the Defenders, they somehow make it all work. And they somehow end it in this place where it feels like it's a dark story. It's a dark, dark story. And despite that, it manages to be hopeful. And I think that's its greatest achievement, is it comes out of it with this view of the world that, like, if we choose to, and we choose to come together as a community, we can make the world a better place and a safer place, and we can find ways to overcome these people, right? These people that seek to control, these people that seek to wield their wealth to become above the law. Like, us as people can overcome that. Like, the proletariat has that kind of power if we simply decide to, right? It's like the same thing they say about democracy, which is like democracy works because the people in the democracy believe democracy works. It's that same kind of intransient faith in something that is like made mutable in the show through Matt's Catholicism and through Foggy's like unwillingness to not be his best self, and through Karen's doggedness to like put herself in danger to do the right thing at all times. Like, it's a deeply dark story that is hopeful about what people are capable of and what people can achieve if they decide to be good or to try to be good, and that trying is the main thing, and that being is irrelevant and the outcome is irrelevant. It's about the trying. And it's difficult to find stories that sustain that throughout while letting the characters be flawed. It feels like in the kind of contemporary moment, you either have a perfect protagonist who can never quite do something wrong, or you have a edgy, flawed protagonist who can never quite do anything right. And I think this splits the uprights of all of those things by making characters that feel realized and real, as it were, right? The simulacra versus the simulacron. And it just it becomes a show that endures because they're very simple morals, they're very simple ideas it's exploring, made complicated by the situations they're in. Instead of trying to say some grand thing about people, it's trying to be present in the moments it's telling and have them be evocative and have you think about these things. It's not prescriptive, it's inductive, it has so much energy with its execution of the simple ideas it puts in place that by the time you get to this end that we're at now, I still have like 20 hours of thoughts on this, right? Like, we could talk about one scene. We could talk about the scene with Fisk and the owner of Rabbit in a Snowstorm. We could talk about that scene for like 2 hours by itself. I think that is a real testament to what this show is and what good TV and what good stories can be, is that there is no key that solves Daredevil. Every time you watch it, and each person that comes to it is going to have a different interpretation and different things they can push and pull on to put in conversation with the show. There's no twist that makes it not worthwhile or that makes it uninteresting. And that's what good stories are.
Yeah, it's a magic you have to experience rather than solve or understand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that might be our final word. Is that our final word on Daredevil? It might be.
It's poetic. It's beautiful.
We'll take it.
As in our words. I think we should end on that.
Yeah. So next episode, Pat, I'm so excited. You are going to be. This is our ultimate finale. It is the kind of pot at the end of the rainbow, as it were. We're going to hit Pat's Perspective Season 4. I want to just kind of acknowledge the journey we've been on. I know that me and Darth had a similar experience when we finished covering Sherlock, where we had the bonus episode, right? The show ended, then we had our full episode after that. Seems the structure is weirdly aligned the same way. Not planned, but I'll take it. Maybe that's my life now. Who knows? I want to kind of acknowledge like the time and consideration this has taken, and the fact that we've made deliberate choices around taking breaks, around letting certain episodes be their own entire episode of coverage, and really just acknowledge the process delivering on what we hoped it would, which is we've reached this point, and I feel like we have hopefully expanded, articulated, and explored what makes this piece of art the thing it is, and what makes this piece of genre fiction stand out from other similar pieces of genre fiction in its same kind of contemporary context, and possibly also its historical context.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have a different. This show holds a different place in my mind now after doing this show, but also I don't know. I have also shifted my way of engaging with media as a whole. Honestly, like I've gotten a lot better at articulating my thoughts, I reckon, and in doing so, I've noticed, because I've been rewatching Better Call Saul, like the way I'm thinking about that show is been heavily influenced by this show, and like sort of the ideas that we discuss and the way we come to those ideas as well. Like,
yeah,
it's been very productive. Yeah,
I feel the same way. I feel it's sort of the willingness to meet to meet text in the moment you're in, and to stop looking for, to become less concerned with evidence that produces answers, and to become more concerned with what something evokes in you and your attempts to articulate that evocation rather than explain it. And then to let it go places, to let that feeling or that thing that was evoked take you somewhere. And to have ridiculous conversations that aren't based in the text, but that are nonetheless valuable, right? I think that for me is the biggest thing that this has unlocked, is I guess versus the Sherlock coverage, where that was like, I was reading so much paratext and I had to do so much research and theory. Like, I think the book ends up with like 84 references or something. This was much more, this feels like the evolution of that, where it's like, okay, well, you can take a close reading like that, and it can just be about how you feel and think, and what it does for you and what it produces for you. And I completely agree. I feel like doing it has changed, perhaps more subtly for me, because I already did the previous long study. But I think it proves to me, at least personally, that this format that I've chosen for the way I do this show moving forward is different and differently productive than the things I used to do. And it's more aligned with like my disciplinary interests, right? It's not covering something every week that's contemporary. It's spending a lot of time with a thing and trying to appreciate and understand the thing itself and who we are in the moment when we're consuming it, right? Yeah.
That's exactly right.
All right, we'll leave it there. We genuinely appreciate the heck out of you watching or listening. This has been a real experience for us to get here. We have our kind of crescendo coming up. Very, very excited. As always, Pat, if people, they go, man, this Patrick Laverne guy, he's got it wired. I want to hear more of his thoughts. Where can people find you on the internet?
I'm sorry if you think that way. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Search A Method to the Madness podcast. We also have a website, AMTTM.com, where you can find our episodes and our socials from there.
Yeah, and of course, all that is linked in the description. So go check that out.
Yeah, and we, as you may have guessed, if you don't already know, we do mainly cover Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul content. So if that's up your alley, then we are probably up your alley.
Yeah, we got something cooking with Better Call Saul. Let's say that.
Oh yes.
And also the Matrix. Yes. I mean, the Matrix thing will be out by the time you hear this, but let's just say there's something in the pot and it's brewing, Pat, and it's not tea. Okay.
Let the chef cook.
Let the chef cook, bro. Of course, we are Zero Indent. You can find us everywhere at ZeroIndent.com is the best place to go find all of our links. If you want to support us, ZeroIndent.com/Patreon. If you want to give us a buck directly, we are, of course, a listener and reader supported publication. And if you want to go find our merch, buy my books, buy my Sherlock book, grab the Maynard Triggs series, you can go to underink.press. And hopefully by the time this is out, potentially we will have an announcement about someone that isn't me that we're publishing through the network. So keep an eye out for that. Always trying to find new artists to put the spotlight on. It's my life's mission to give people opportunities to get their foot in the door and help them develop their creative talent. And that is part of that. So underink.press if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, ZeroIndent.com. That'll do it for Daredevil in the details. Until our finale next time, Pat's Perspective Season 4. We appreciate you guys giving a comment, a review, a like, whatever it is on your platform of choice. It helps more people find us. But to be completely honest with you, we make a really niche program here. Long-form studies of genre fiction. The best way you can help us grow is by telling one person in your life who you think would enjoy it. Send it to your nan. Send it to your friend. Send it to your frenemy. What do I care? If you think someone will enjoy it, send it to them and say, hey, I think this is up your alley. We appreciate the heck out of it. I also want to just shout out Chris, who has commented on almost every episode that we've posted. One of the real ones. Appreciate the heck out of your support, Chris. Good looking out. That'll do it, Pat. Yeah, it makes a difference when someone's like, I'm listening to all of these and here are my thoughts, and they have thoughts based on our thoughts. I think that's really part of what this vehicle is supposed to do, you know?
Especially when they're constructive and productive thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't need someone being like, why is this 4.5 hours? you know, which we get a lot of. That'll do it. We'll catch you guys next time for our Daredevil coverage finale over here, Pat's Perspective Season 4. That's it, Pat. We're out of here. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, as they say on the Truman Show.
Alrighty.